Do you wish you could get virtual attendees to turn their cameras on? Is engagement the number one issue on your virtual meetings? Do you want your meeting to be the most engaging virtual meeting? Well, welcome to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. In this podcast, we'll talk to the top people around the world in virtual meetings and give you, the listener, the best ideas to host engaging virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Now, let's welcome your host, the author of the #1 Amazon hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings, John Chen. All right, this is John Chen broadcasting live today from Cupertino, California, as I cruise through my travels here, heading to Utah next. And what else is on the list? Oh, I'm working August 23rd is the Korea Fest that I'm actually working on in Seattle, Washington. And today at 1 o'clock, in about an hour in some form of minutes, you can also catch me on CAVO, or the Center for Advancement of Virtual Organizations program. I'll be teaching 6 steps about hybrid. You can check out this podcast. If you are here, make sure and either hit subscribe, like, or comment while you're on there. And you can get any of these podcasts on any of the 13 favorite platforms you get podcasts on if you go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online. Now, today's guest, I'm so excited. I just recently saw her at MPI, or Meetings Professionals International's World Education Congress. She is a total rising star, keynote speaker, leadership coach, and host of her own amazing women in business podcast called Dare to Interrupt. Dare to Interrupt. Oh, gee, I'll make sure you can get that right. Let's give a round of applause for my good friend.
Okay, guys, I am back. So I'm just going to take over for a minute while John is working out his technical difficulties. As we know, that can always be an issue for sure, especially when we're not at home. So I know John said that he's in California right now. I know he's used to the Pacific Northwest, but definitely in a different office today. So while he is fixing some of the technical issues, I will just go ahead and introduce myself to you, which is always fun. So my name is Courtney Stanley. If there's anybody out there that I've met before, crossed paths with before, maybe we're best friends, definitely drop a hello in the comments or give us some love. I am based in Detroit, Michigan. I actually just moved here a little less than 2 years ago. Have you been to Detroit? Have you been to Detroit lately? It's a super cool city. I have definitely loved the past couple of years just getting to know this new home of mine, and it's been a great experience so far. Also, let us know where you're joining us from today. I know John said that we're streaming out to, I think, about 20 different platforms, which is wild to me and definitely something I've never done before. So I'll just start by telling you a little bit about myself. I actually started out my career in the events industry. So I went to Central Michigan University. I very intentionally, after changing majors a few times, studied hospitality and event management and started out my career as a meeting planner, as an event planner. It was a wonderful trial, but I think after a few years of realizing how hard that role is, shout out to all of my event professional friends, I decided to take a little bit of a turn and try my hand at more of the PR marketing world. Worked in tech, lived in Toronto, moved all over the place. So I've had quite the zigzag of a career. And what's really interesting is that throughout that time of just trying different things, I didn't realize that I was actually developing a lot of different skill sets that led to me becoming an entrepreneur, which was 5 years ago. So I'm a business owner. I'm a full-time keynote speaker. I host a podcast that John told you about called Dare to Interrupt. It's for women in business, really to give them space to share their wisdom, their experiences, their stories with other women and men in any industry, really, to offer a form of mentorship that is more at a global scale. And I also do coaching. So I do public speaking coaching and just general career advancement coaching as well. So that's a little bit
Courtney.
about me. John is back. So I welcome
Yeah.
him back. Yes, happy to have you here with me, but also good to keep me on my toes. So
Well, you were just saying, Courtney, that you were saying you want to take an improv class. Well, ta-da, here it is.
Literally, I thought the same thing as soon as you were like, just keep it going. I was like, yep, we just talked about this 2 minutes ago about how I've never taken an improv class, but we will say yes and so perfect.
The Courtney's ability to manifest is super high.
Apparently,
So
it's very immediate ttoo, within
very,
seconds.
very immediate. Well, Courtney, thank you again for doing that intro.
Of
And
course.
um, I'm getting a chance to watch you too as part of MPI. I've been a member for Meetings Professionals International, and you really have done some great parts in terms of leadership and women's issues and women's leadership, especially in MPI, which usually we see like 80% women leaders, which I think makes the organization very, very unique. What do you feel like is some of the best things or best advice that you may have gotten over the past few years to really help yourself launch yourself?
I mean, I think one of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten in general, entrepreneurship aside, but just as an individual contributing to a really special industry, is to take up space and to use my voice. I remember when I was sitting on MPI's International Board of Directors, I think I was about 26 at the time. I was significantly less experienced in our industry than anybody else on the board. And I remember there was a very distinct moment where one of my fellow board members, Annette Gregg, pulled me aside and she just encouraged me to really use my voice and to lean into the conversation and to recognize that there was a reason why I was in that room, even though everybody else had so much more time spent in the industry. So that's actually been one of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten. But in terms of launching the business, I would have to credit another friend of mine from the events industry, Trevor Louie. He was really an advocate and a cheerleader for me to try to go off on my own. And in doing so, to make sure that I was understanding my market value, charging what I was worth, and walking confidently forward on that path as a solopreneur, really. So I would say those are the first two things that come to mind. But I mean, John, you've been in this world of business ownership for ever, it seems. What do you feel like has been one of, the greatest lessons that you would want to pass on to maybe your younger self?
Oh, well, that's a great question, Courtney. And a shout out to Trevor Louie. Trevor Louie, of course, is one of the top Asian Pacific Islanders, as well as meeting professionals, as well as what is it? He's won the big deal
Oh,
as part
yeah.
of WC.
Poker
Yeah,
tournament.
the best advice that I've really gotten too, and I love this, Courtney. Look at you and your interview skills back. Like
I got you,
this, which
boo.
I
I'm
know,
like,
which make you such a great facilitator. I think the number one thing that I tell people all the time is that entrepreneurship is where you get your passion to meet the world's pocketbook, right?
mm,
So, it's one thing to be passionate about something, but if you can't get somebody to pay you for it, then it becomes a hobby. But if you can really get somebody to value that service and also pay for it, I think that's one of the keys. And so, for instance, my initial idea for this company was one thing, but what people paid me was something slightly different than that. But it still matched the three things that I'm really passionate around, and that for me is technology, adventure, and human change. And that's one of the things I think that's unique about entrepreneurship. I think the other part too, and Courtney, maybe you've seen this too. Uh, Entrepreneurship is the path to authenticity, right? And what I
mm.
what I mean by that is that I think you become a more successful person when you become more of who you are, and not having to hide a piece of who you are, which quite often is sometimes what you have to do in other jobs. So I don't know if you've
Hmm.
seen that.
I definitely have. I think that I've experienced quite a bit of that where I do feel that oftentimes the reality is that there is this need to fit in to a culture or a company or to fit a certain role that a boss is wanting you to fit, right? They hire the personality they perceive, they hire the person they think is going to get the job done, check these boxes, do it the way they want it done, which, on a team can be really functional. I think it's important to have people that work well together, but I have found that in my experience in trying to fit into the mold of what somebody else wants me to be, I have maybe lost certain parts of myself that could
Yeah.
arguably be the best parts of myself. And I think one of the most beautiful parts of starting a business and working for myself is that level of freedom to really do things the way that I feel are authentic to me, to really lean into areas of growth. And I think one of the best gifts that's come out of running a business is I think it really laid the groundwork for me to develop greater self-confidence. And I think that really stemmed from being myself and recognizing that people were hiring me to literally show up and be myself. I think that that's such a beautiful thing, and that's something that comes with the opportunity of entrepreneurship.
Hmm. Well, speaking of entrepreneurship, you reminded me that you started in the venerable year of 2020, which
Yeah,
is like
sure
what a
did.
great time to start a business. One of the things, so I started my business in the dot bomb. Do you remember the dot bomb when all the dot coms were blowing up?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one of the useful parts in hindsight to that was that it made it easy to grow, meaning that if you start in one of these times, when the economy starts expanding, you can just kind of like, all boats are rising, take up with that and take the time to learn with that. But I'd love to hear, what happened for you or what were some of those unique moments in 2020 when you launched your company?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was pure chaos and confusion, I would say. I mean, so what people may not know, is unless they've known me for a certain amount of time, is that I was side hustling for years before I took the leap into full-time entrepreneurship. So as I was working for these different companies, there was no intention to turn it into something like a business, but I was taking areas of passion that I wasn't able to tap into and working for somebody else and just doing it on the side, and eventually started to monetize things like leading workshops and taking the stage, and turned mentoring into a formal coaching program, and then started the podcast. All of that happened before I went off on my own full time. However, I think, at the end of 2019, when I made this decision to go full time starting January 1st, 2020, I had no idea that running a business full time, it was completely different than side hustling for your different passion projects, those types of things. There is a whole realm of knowledge that you really don't get until you're doing the work and it's boots on the ground. So even stepping into 2020 before the pandemic hit, I was lost. I was like, how do I spend my time? What do I do from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday? Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'll figure it out, but what am I doing? And then when March came around and, the world flips upside down with the pandemic, I mean, it went from confusion, I think, to chaos. And, I would say the first 6 months, 9 months of 2020, I completely changed my business strategy, obviously to a virtual format. That was a game changer and a lifesaver, a business saver in
Mm.
2020 and in 2021. And it really took me about 6 months to find my footing and decide on a business strategy moving forward with virtual. And I would say, September of 2020 is when the rest of the industry caught up and started actually hosting these virtual gatherings. And I'm pretty sure almost every dollar that I made in 2020 came in Q4. And that was because that's when we all got our shit together. And I was on the ride with them at that time. So lots of lessons learned, but a very chaotic year to start a business. Also, one of the best years to really have your back pressed against the wall, to
Mhm.
understand why I'm doing this work and to decide whether it's worth pursuing, even if it's going to be the most difficult thing I do. And for me, the answer was let's go.
Worth pursuing. Those are a great uh it's just a great call in that time, because you go through that process and you're not sure, right? We're all, I can tell you every entrepreneur in that first yearish or so is still not exactly sure.
Hmm.
And I love when the universe gives you that confirmation that goes around there. So I'd love to hear that. What was you think that one moment that was your confirmation? And of course, the second part I'm just interested in is what version of your virtual format became your lifesaver, whether it was speaking or facilitating or something else?
So I'll answer the second question first. So the format that I really leaned into, I would say, was primarily speaking, but I also started emceeing, which I had never planned to do, but I saw that there was a need at that time. And for me, it was more a question of I mean, is it that different? Is emceeing that different from speaking? You get on stage, you facilitate, you speak, you troubleshoot. If I have all of those skills for speaking, can I do it in an MC role? And the answer in that was yes. So I started doing more emceeing and more speaking than anything else. Coaching work for me is always virtual. I mean, if we get lucky enough that we're in the same place at one time, great. But for the most part, that's always virtual. So that's how I would answer that question. And then to your first question, what was that moment of clarity that like I'm on the right path, I'm going to move forward, I'd made the right decision? It wasn't so much I would say there was a different kind of moment that happened where I think I was questioning whether I was doing the right thing. I'm grinding, but am I seeing any results? A friend of mine sent me a care package. And in this care package, she had written me a note and she was just so encouraging. And the words that I really needed to hear at that time were, if anybody can do this, you can. And I took that to heart. And that really became that moment of, okay, I'm going to do everything I can in this time and just see what I can accomplish. We talked about manifesting. One of the reasons why I went into this on my own was because I wanted to grow and I wanted to grow exponentially without anybody getting in my way, anybody telling me no, any structural barriers in place in a, typical corporate office setting. And I got exactly what I asked for. I got a completely blank slate and the opportunity to do whatever I wanted to in a world that was looking for reinvention. And so for me, that moment of clarity really came as a moment of support from a friend. Once I started actually really doing the work and finding my groove and doing all these virtual engagements and starting to get myself out there a little bit more during this time, I think the confirmation, honestly, was the financial success. Knowing that I was able to turn things around during such a difficult time also gave me that encouragement to know that I could do even better the next time when the world was calmed down a little bit. So I think that's how I would answer that question.
Those are great tips. And I love that emceeing was one of the ways out because to
Yeah.
me, I just recently got a chance to add as a contributing editor to the MC guide for the National Speakers Association.
So
They
cool.
have a guide that they publish for meeting planners, by the way. Make sure and check that out. And like, how do you select an MC? And I would love to hear some of your top tips for emceeing for that. Yeah, I got to contribute to the virtual and the hybrid guide specifically. What do you think really makes a great MC?
I think, well, being able to go with the flow and troubleshoot is probably number one. I think when you're emceeing, there are going to be a million things that capture your attention, and there are also going to be things that go wrong. So I think being able to multitask but think quickly and shift gears on the spot is probably skill number one. I think being able to take a script and make it human is probably also one of the most critical skills to have as an MC. Your clients, whether you script it or your clients are scripting for you, it needs to feel human and it needs to feel authentic. So, a lot of times we see these are not professional MCs, but we see leadership from certain organizations step on stage and they've been positioned to be kind of the facilitator, the MC for the day. And there's just not a lot of color there. Like there's not a lot of life, not a lot of fun that's happening. I think you need somebody who is able to play the part and make it their own, but also someone who's able to deal with stuff when things go wrong. I think those are probably the two most important things I would say.
Well, of course, we're talking about things that go wrong today. So just so to see the behind the scenes setup behind this, right? My internet in this place has been shaky already through the day, so I lost connection. That's why Courtney was in charge. And so this setup here is actually an iPhone and was it the Paralogics? I don't know if you've seen this. It's like a $6 clip you can buy on Amazon, but it allows you to clip it to like usually an airline setup so you can have your phone
Oh,
there.
interesting.
So
Okay.
this is actually hanging off of a shelf, right? And it's actually I have the camera actually at the right level. And one of my favorite pieces of technology is the AirPods Pro 2 is a pretty significant. I can't believe how good these headphones are. I had another pair of the Amazon headphones, and these I was surprised how well they do, how well they work in weird situations, and how much noise they can cancel. So those are the behind the scenes things. Like, do you have any great behind the scenes improv that you've ever had to do as an MC?
Oof. I mean, there definitely have been many a time where connections have gone down. You've had to pick things back up. Speakers freeze. So I could be facilitating a panel. There's somebody who's really getting into it, and then they freeze in an awkward face position, and you have to kind of just carry it on. But you've also got, your client texting you what's going on, what's happening. You've also got the attendees in the chat saying he's frozen, I can't hear him. And you're also still looking at the screen, totally improving. So there have definitely been plenty of times like that. It's one of my hacks that I like to do when I'm emceeing anything that does have a script, which most things will, is first of all, don't over script. So I would say, reading line for line, not a great idea. There are, different teleprompter technologies that you can use, but I would say the less that you're scripted, the better. I think bullet points for the win. Something that I'll do, and this is such a archaic hack, but I do it every single time, is I will download scripts or bullet points as PDFs. I'll pull them up to the top of my screen, and I'll just keep that top 2, 3 lines at the top. So I'm looking into the camera like I am now, but I've got my
Yes.
little mouse next to me. I'm kind of scrolling down as I'm talking. I'm maybe looking around a little bit, which feels conversational anyway. But that way, your eyes don't shift to the left, the right, down too far if you're trying to read something or refer to bullet points. I think, virtual conversations should feel as natural as possible. So if you think of the camera lens as a human being's face, you're not going to stare at it the whole time, but you're also not going to be looking around as if somebody else or something else is capturing your attention. So that's actually one of my favorite hacks that I've used since day one of doing virtual emceeing, is to keep that script as a really simple PDF, not something that's going to crash, and
Yes.
just keep it as, organically scripted or bulleted as possible.
You'll love this new one too, Courtney. Have you seen the Elgato prompter? Have you
I
seen this
have
thing?
not. No, tell me
A
about it.
cool piece of technology, about 200, a little over 200. You can stick any webcam or camera behind it, and it plugs in as a new screen. And so it allows you to scroll on the
Ooh,
screen, but literally like right in front of the camera.
I
And
love that.
so
I'm
but
gonna
here's
try
one
it
of my,
out.
I love the old school hacks here too. One of them is get 3 facts about the person, and that's all I do for the intro because nobody wants you to read like the 40-page intro.
No.
There's like, yeah. So this is like one of the most unique ones that happened in this wedding that I emceed this weekend. It was one of the younger sons, and his intro went something like this. Right, coming up next. He asked his brother Kincaid to write this for him, and he didn't consider the downside of that. And by the way, ladies, he's single. Here's Aiden, right? And it was funny because that was an intro nobody was expecting,
Yeah,
right?
I love that. Yeah. I think it's
And that,
always fun to have somebody introduce another person in real time too. So I've actually had that. It was on somebody's podcast. I was with another guest, a fellow guest. We're being interviewed, and out of nowhere, the host, instead of introducing us or having us introduce ourselves, she asked us to introduce the other person that was with us. And so it was a
oh,
really fun improv exercise because, you think you know what you know about the person next to you, but how well are you going to do an intro justice for this person? And of course, we try our best, and it worked out great, but it was kind of fun to put people on their toes a little bit, and have them engage more in real time rather than having something that's super prepared.
awesome. Well, speaking of virtual too, what has to happen for Courtney Stanley to feel like she's engaged in a virtual program? I'm just curious, like either the things that you do and the things that you might expect of other speakers.
So I'll sit back in the audience for this question. So when I'm in the audience for any sort of virtual engagement, for me, I really need to be doing something. I need to be workshopped. That's number one. So yes, it's helpful to have an engaging speaker, but from an audience perspective, I know that I have a very short attention span, and even less so when it's virtual. I've got my phone, I've got my laundry going, there's a lot happening. And so for me, I need to be doing something with my hands. I'm best as a hands-on learner or a visual learner. So if there's something exciting, something emotional that I'm experiencing, that's also another great way to get into the psychology and into the mind of the audience, is to create different types of emotions when you're presenting anything, whether it's on a panel, it's, performance, it's a keynote. But from an audience perspective, any sort of emotion that's created is going to also help me feel more bonded and more invested in the person that's speaking. So one thing there. And then also, I just want to be doing something, like give me something to practice, give me something to try. have me engage with another virtual attendee that's there. The more activity there is that requires attention, the greater the attention span of that audience member is going to be. And I think it's also, critical that we consider inclusion in this as well, because I think virtual meetings are probably one of the more difficult platforms to ensure that you're being inclusive of everyone because you're not seeing them. If I'm on a stage in person and I'm seeing people that aren't engaged, they're bored, or maybe they're isolated, I will do many different things to make sure that we create a culture that feels inviting to everybody. Whereas with virtual, you really do need to go out of your way to ensure that everybody's part of that conversation. And that's done by doing things like partner work, group work, workshopping, having other people take the stage and share. I would never volunteer anyone to take the stage because everyone hates that, but usually there's somebody who wants to contribute and also shake things up.
Oh, well, we got a shout out from Terry on Facebook. Great session. It says, John, you're one of the most authentic and optimistic people I've had the pleasure of connecting with in my career.
Oh,
So kind.
ditto.
So,
That's
Terry,
so
and
nice.
this is a fun part, the fun things that we get to do in our career. I'm now a judge in the ESTO Awards, ESTO. All the submissions are in, but it's about local and regional locations like cities in their marketing campaigns. And so I've gotten a
Oh,
chance to really see some
cool.
unique marketing campaigns. You'd be a great judge for this, Courtney.
Oh, but yeah, get me in there. I'll judge away. That sounds fun.
So coming up next in two, Courtney, now that we're just starting to emerge, hopefully it feels great for you this 2024. The
Mhm.
fact that you and I saw each other at WC, I think is just more confirmation of that. What do you see for the future of virtual and hybrid? It's really interesting in the meetings profession. I think some people want it to go away, and other people think that it's. I think there's a key part of it. I want to know what Courtney Stanley has to say about it.
I think it's here to stay. And I think that there's so much value in adding a virtual component. So Cvent is a partner of mine, and I have been their on-camera MC for the virtual audience. So they host a hybrid user conference every year called Cvent Connect, and I'm their MC for their virtual audience. So I'm essentially connecting the dots between what's happening in person on site on the ground to what the virtual audience is experiencing, creating special content for them, having live Q&A chats with them so that they feel like they're part of that experience. So I can speak directly from the hybrid standpoint that there's so much value in hybrid. Also, from a bottom line perspective, there are so many people that can't escape because they've got life stuff going on or that don't have the funds to attend in person. So they want to join. Maybe they can't join for the whole thing. Virtual allows meetings to be more accessible for anybody. And I think that that is probably driver number one for why I think that virtual is going to stick around or hybrid is going to stick around. But it's also more convenient. I love virtual from all standpoints. As a speaker, it allows me to stay home. And I want to stay home every now and then. I'm on the road quite a bit to speak in person. So I love when I get virtual requests. I'm like, this is great. Like, I love virtual. I know I can make it engaging, but it also allows me to have the convenience of having a personal life at home too. And the same goes for the virtual audience. I think, we see all these jokes about like email or excuse me, meetings that could have been an email. I think the same applies, to the idea that a full 3-day conference maybe could have been a couple different virtual breakouts that allow people to still spend time with their families. So huge component, huge supporter of in-person and face-to-face. I don't think it competes with virtual. I think that they work together to create the most inclusive, accessible experience that gets the job done in a more efficient way.
Fantastic. Well, have you checked out the website Innovation Women yet?
No, what is Innovation Women? You're schooling me here, John. I want to hear all the things.
Bobby Carlton created this website really with the goal of creating equity on the stage, at least on the gender part. And so she has a very valuable website for women speakers. You should check it out.
I'm gonna write it
And
down.
it also gives you other conferences to apply. So I'm one of the friendly male ally members. And I have gotten already 8 speaking gigs out of applying to the conferences that she posts on there who went because they have all their call for proposals like in one place. Very, very cool,
That's
convenient.
awesome.
And her goal, her point of view really was that virtual really has helped with the equity part because women can now go and keynote. And if it's a virtual like that, they can keynote and, keep whatever responsibilities they may have. It gives them more opportunity to do that as opposed to the when you got to travel for 3, 4, 5 days, right? To go
Yes.
keynote or something.
Yeah, I think it aligns with all of the research that we're seeing in remote work in general. So, we've seen time and time again all of these data points come out about employee preferences and how being able to work from home and having a hybrid work environment, so go into the office and work from home, is the preference. And it's become a priority for people to feel like they have more freedom and more balance in working for other companies. So I think it's those are the same types of data points where it's solving problems of people trying to juggle all the things at once instead of being able to really prioritize what they need to do and take the time to dedicate toward the different parts of their lives, family, personal, work, travel. It just provides more option.
Speaking of more options, Terry says she wants you as a judge next year, so we'll talk about that.
Okay,
All right.
Terry, I see you.
Here's the fun part of new part of I've been doing during my podcast. This is the speed round. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and you got to try and answer them as fast as
Ooh,
possible. Are you ready?
yes.
Okay, your top passion.
Oh my gosh. What? Travel. Travel.
Ooh, good one. Your favorite woman leader.
Brene Brown.
Oh yeah, good one. Best workshop you've ever led.
Ooh. I just led a workshop on the psychology of storytelling and how to create stories and presentations to get into the minds and hearts of audience members. And that one was really fun. So I'm going to go with that one.
Favorite piece of tech.
And I can't say phone, or can I say phone?
You can say phone.
Okay, I'm going to go with okay. I'm going to choose my Spotify playlist on my phone.
Ooh, you got to share your Spotify playlist. I run all my playlists for all my programs on Spotify. I would create custom ones for every conference.
That's awesome. I love that.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm curious to really see what's on your list. Okay. Favorite quote.
Oh gosh. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, by Wayne Dyer.
Ooh, good one. Wayne Dyer. A little OG there too. Best virtual or hybrid conference you've ever attended.
Ooh. So I would have to say that there was one actually running, oh my gosh, what was it called? It was run by Storycraft Lab and it was running in 2020 and it was a very touchy-feely emotional conference that everybody needed that year. I cannot remember what it was called, but that was definitely my favorite.
I know Storycraft Lab, so we know that.
They're awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, last question. Best part of yourself that you appreciate.
I would say my thoughtfulness. I think that's what my family would say too. I care a lot about my family, the friends that I have, the relationships that I have. And it's important for me to understand them and deliver, love and care to them in a way that resonates.
Well, genius. Well, today I have to end our meeting to end today's broadcast because I'm streaming from a phone. But I get to ask this last question to you, which is that if you could magically get people to remember one thing from this interview, what would that one thing be, Courtney?
Take up space. I think the first question you asked me about business advice, different encouragement, words of wisdom I've received as an entrepreneur, take up space and use your voice.
Outstanding, Courtney. Well, Courtney, this is John Chen here on Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Make sure you follow this person, Courtney Stanley. She's one to watch all the time, and make sure and subscribe to her podcast too. Amazing interviews on side of there. Courtney, thank you again one more time for joining us here on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast.
Thank you so much, John. This has been awesome.
This is John Chen, the author of the Amazon #1 hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings. I personally want to say thank you for listening to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. It is my passion to help you eliminate bad virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so that you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast with all of the latest ideas. Hey, I want to meet you. If you want to talk about a virtual meeting challenge, or if you want to be the next guest on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, just go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet. That's ENGAGING VIRTUAL meetings.com/meet, MEET, and find your best time to meet up. Thank you, and I look forward to engaging with you online.